Welcome to the Crime Records channel. Today we're taking you into a story of betrayal and deadly obsession that led to a shocking double murder. Maria Tran, a dedicated nurse, met Devin Williams, a member of law enforcement, during an encounter at John George Psychiatric Hospital. Despite Maria's marriage, she felt an undeniable attraction to Devin's charm. This forbidden relationship quickly blossomed into a passionate affair, leading them both down a path of secrecy and desire. Yet beneath the surface, dangerous signs began to emerge, hinting at a darker fate. As their relationship intensified, one question loomed. Where would this risky passion ultimately lead them? Maria Tran and her husband, Benison Tran, had a marriage that over time lost its spark. Though they had been together for years, their emotional connection had faded, and they lived in a state of growing distance. Benison, who wasn't expressive with his emotions, and Maria, who felt a lack of passion, continued their marriage for the sake of responsibility rather than love. Despite the emptiness in their relationship, they remained together, living out the day-to-day routines of a marriage that had lost its vibrancy. This was the state of things before Maria's affair with Devin Williams began. Maria Tran worked at John George Psychiatric Hospital, where she often interacted with patients and colleagues. One day she noticed a man entering her view. This man was Devin Williams, a deputy sheriff who was there to visit a patient. His tall stature and warm smile immediately caught Maria's attention. Devin was not the typical hardened law enforcement officer. His graceful manner and captivating charm, paired with a deep, caring gaze, made Maria feel an unexpected attraction. Their first conversation, a simple greeting outside a patient's room, left a lasting impression on her. As their encounters grew more frequent, Maria began to look forward to seeing him. Devin seemed to make an effort to cross paths with her, and their interactions became more meaningful. Every exchange made Maria's heart race, feeling a connection that she hadn't experienced in a long time. Devin also noticed Maria's growing interest. He took every opportunity to engage with her, from casual chats to deeper conversations, and appeared patient and attentive. His focus on her made Maria feel understood, a stark contrast to the emotional distance she felt in her marriage to Benison. Maria and Devin's extramarital affair began with passion and temptation. Each encounter was a sweet escape. Devin cleverly created opportunities to meet, inviting Maria to spend time together. What started with casual chats evolved into weekly meetings, deepening their connection. During these private dates, Maria felt warmth and care she hadn't experienced in a long time. Their time together was filled with passion, and Devin's words stirred something deep inside her. Maria found herself getting lost in this relationship, feeling that everything with Devin was better than her marriage to Benison. Maria started making more time for Devin, always feeling a mix of anxiety and excitement when leaving home. She knew the relationship was dangerous, but her desires overpowered her judgment. Time spent with Devin made her feel young and adored, as though all her troubles vanished. She stopped thinking about the emotional distance with Benison and focused on the private world with Devin. However, as the affair deepened, Maria's feelings became more complicated. On one hand, she was addicted to the passion and novelty of the relationship. On the other, she began to question whether it was the right choice. Although guilt sometimes washed over her, she couldn't resist the temptation. When with Devin, all feelings of wrongdoing seemed to disappear. She sank deeper into the sweetness and excitement, slowly forgetting about her marital obligations and moral boundaries. Over time, Maria became increasingly dependent on Devin's companionship. She grew more intolerant of the emotional coldness from Benison, while every meeting with Devin felt invigorating and full of passion. Her heart and body were fully invested in the affair, even though she knew the dangers it might bring. Still, she couldn't stop seeking the comfort and joy the relationship with Devin gave her. Maria and Devin's connection wasn't always filled with sweetness. As their closeness grew, Maria also began to feel more conflicted. She realized that their relationship was no longer just about pleasure and passion. It carried an unspoken weight. Each time she returned home to Benison, guilt and self-blame followed her like a shadow. She grew anxious, fearing her actions might be exposed or that she might lose her connection with Devon. Despite this, Maria couldn't end the affair. She had become too deeply involved, even fantasizing about their future together, dreaming of a life where she could escape her dull marriage and live freely with Devon. Maria's heart had already fallen into this dangerous relationship, and her internal struggles became harder to balance. As time went on, Maria began to realize that her feelings for Devon were no longer as pure as they had been at the start. Although they still shared many sweet moments together, she started noticing some flaws in Devon's character. His emotional instability often made her feel uneasy, especially when he was selfish or impatient. At times, his possessiveness made her feel trapped rather than loved. These changes led Maria to reflect on her relationship with Devon. She began to have doubts about Devon's behavior, particularly his anger and lack of control when she rejected him. She realized that he wasn't the gentle and caring person she had initially believed him to be. Instead, he seemed self-centered and short-tempered. She started to remember the tender care he had shown when they first met, but now he seemed like a different man, one who was more concerned about his own needs than hers. These flaws left Maria deeply confused. She started to question whether this affair was worth continuing. She wondered if she had idealized Devon too much, putting him on a pedestal and overlooking his true nature. Facing these conflicting feelings, Maria felt great pain. She realized that she wasn't just betraying her husband, she was also betraying her own beliefs about love. The inner conflict made Maria increasingly anxious. She slowly came to the realization that, although her affair with Devon had been full of passion and temporary joy, it had not brought her true fulfillment. She began reassessing her life and marriage, seeking a more rational and mature path forward. She knew that if she stayed with Devon, she would never be able to resolve the internal struggle and guilt that consumed her. On that day, Maria knew there was no turning back from her decision. She found Devon and decided to confront the end of their relationship head-on. The air was thick with tension as Maria looked him in the eyes and softly said, "I think we can't continue anymore." Her voice, though calm, was resolute. She had already made up her mind. This affair had to end, no matter how he would react. Devon's expression immediately turned complicated, and he froze for a moment, seemingly in disbelief. "What did you say?" he repeated, as if confirming his ears had misheard. "You really want to leave me?" His voice began to tremble, unable to accept that Maria was making this decision. Maria nodded and took a deep breath. "Yes, I've made up my mind." Devon's face quickly shifted to one of pain, as if all the strength had drained from him. He hurried toward Maria, his tone becoming more desperate. "You can't do this. We've had so many good times, and you're just going to give up like this?" He paused and looked at her, eyes filled with refusal and anger. "I know I haven't been perfect, but I'll change. Give me a chance." Maria felt his body getting closer, and she could hear his rapid breathing. There was an overwhelming pressure in the air, and despite her resolve, her heart still struggled with confusion and pain. She wanted to say something comforting, but all she could manage was, "I've made my decision. This isn't good for either of us. We both need space." Devon stood there, unable to accept the reality of the situation. Anger and hurt intertwined in his expression. After a brief silence, he lowered his head, his tone turning threatening. "You'll regret this. You'll regret it." He stared at Maria, his eyes burning with undeniable fury. Maria felt a chill run down her spine, but she held firm in her decision. As she turned to walk away, a heavy weight settled in her chest. She knew that this decision would change her life, but it also brought with it an uncertain danger. After Maria decided to break up with Devon, her life quickly spiraled into chaos. Devon's reaction was far more intense than she had expected, and he became emotionally uncontrollable. By August 8, 2022, Devon showed up at Maria and Bennison's home late at night, repeatedly ringing the doorbell, unwilling to leave. Maria felt anxious as the constant harassment put both her and Bennison on edge. Despite Bennison trying to calm the situation, Devon's increasingly erratic behavior made it clear that he had lost all rational control. The police intervened, but they failed to effectively stop Devon's actions. Although they arrived on the scene and warned him, Devon's anger was still unchecked. The officers advised Maria and Benison to take further legal steps. But by then, Maria was overwhelmed with fear. She realized that this wasn't just an emotional dispute anymore. It had escalated into a violent threat to their safety. Devon's behavior wasn't just about emotional instability anymore. He was now a clear threat. With each new harassment, Maria's fear grew stronger, and she began questioning whether breaking up with Devon had been the right decision. She knew he wouldn't give up easily, and her safety felt more endangered by the day. But as time went on, the situation worsened. On September 7, 2022, Devon, fully aware of the deep emotional turmoil he was causing, made a decision that would forever change the lives of Maria, Benison, and everyone connected to them. He left his job at the sheriff's office and set off for the Tran family's home in Dublin, California. Armed with a military-grade weapon, he arrived at their doorstep that evening. What happened next was nothing short of tragic. Devon approached the house and, without hesitation, opened fire on both Maria and Benison. His weapon discharged multiple rounds, fatally wounding both victims. Maria and Benison were declared dead at the scene shortly afterward. Devon, realizing the gravity of his actions, fled the scene, leaving behind 2 lifeless bodies and a shattered family. The aftermath of this tragedy shocked the community. Devon's decision to act out of revenge revealed a chilling inability to let go of his desire for control over Maria. His emotional instability and obsession ultimately led to a devastating crime. While he had been given leniency in the past, the weight of his unchecked obsession culminated in the brutal murders of 2 innocent people. This event marked the tragic culmination of a spiraling obsession that no one, not even those close to Devon, had anticipated. His actions serve as a reminder of how unchecked emotional turmoil and an inability to accept rejection can lead to irreversible consequences. After the murder, Devon Williams quickly left Maria and Benison's house, driving into the night. Although he managed to escape the scene, his inner turmoil and guilt prevented him from finding peace. He knew that his actions couldn't be undone, and the weight of his crime grew heavier. That night, after much contemplation, Devon decided to contact the local police and admit his role in the killings. He realized that running away couldn't erase what he had done, and the pressure became too much to bear. Later that evening, Devon called the police and confessed, telling them he was the suspect. This decision marked the end of his brief flight from justice, as he chose to confront his actions. His surrender, however, did not erase the pain and regret that lingered within him. Although he had confessed, the anguish and irreversible reality of his actions continued to haunt him. Upon hearing of his confession, the police acted swiftly and took him into custody. This marked a turning point in the case, offering some solace to Maria and Benison's family, although it was too late to undo the tragedy. Devon Williams's confession did not fully alleviate the guilt he felt. His actions reflected a deep internal struggle, showcasing his recognition of the crime he had committed. While his confession signaled some understanding of his actions, it also revealed his vulnerability and the overwhelming compulsions that led to his irreversible decisions. On October 3, 2024, Devon Williams was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of Maria Tran and Benison Tran. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This judgment marked a significant conclusion to the case, offering a degree of justice for the Tran family, although the pain of their loss remained unchanged. Despite his voluntary confession, Williams could not escape the legal consequences of his actions. The incident shocked the public and triggered widespread discussions among society and experts about Devon Williams's psychological state. As a law enforcement officer, he was expected to show respect for the law and for others' lives, but his actions raised questions about what had happened within him. Psychologists analyzed that Devon failed to properly handle the emotional conflict when faced with Maria's decision to break up and may have long-standing unresolved psychological issues. The high-pressure environment he worked in, without proper mental health support, may have intensified his reaction to the situation. This tragedy also reflects potential psychological risks in law enforcement personnel. Experts also pointed out that extramarital affairs and the emotional instability they bring may be key factors in the crime. Devon's actions, although seemingly an emotional revenge, were rooted in deep fear and anger from losing control. The consequences of an affair go beyond just broken families. It can challenge an individual's emotional stability and mental limits. Many people fail to recognize the connection between emotional issues and mental health until an irreversible tragedy occurs. Therefore, this case serves as a reminder to both society and experts that the consequences of extramarital affairs are far-reaching. They not only destroy family happiness, but can also have a profound impact on one's mental health, even affecting career choices and social behavior. More and more psychologists are calling for high-pressure profession workers, in particular to undergo regular mental health assessments and counseling to prevent emotional and psychological issues from accumulating to unmanageable levels. This also reveals that mental health is not just an individual problem. It is closely related to the stability of society. As a complex social phenomenon, the emotional motivations and conflicts behind extramarital affairs deserve further exploration and reflection. Only through more mental health education and the establishment of supportive social systems can we effectively prevent similar tragedies from occurring.